Today is a good day to talk about Cotswold in Oxfordshire, somewhere in England. And anytime you ask people about it, they're always something wrong or everything wrong with Cotswold and everything right with it. Often it's like, oh, why do you like it? Because it's not London. And that's the reason. At least it's not London. And that's not a good reason. Well, it probably is. And then people say, oh, I don't like it. And why don't you like it? It's a village. It's not London. So basically, everyone just compares it to the bigger cities, the bigger cousins. But the funny thing is that it's a village. And by the way, did you know? I didn't actually know this because when people say the Cotswold, I should have actually clicked, but it didn't at the time. But then when you looked into it, apparently it's just a series of multiple villages. And they're linked together somehow, and they're nice and fancy. And all of a sudden, everyone liked it. Well, not really all of a sudden. You see, when you have something good, sometimes it's best to just be quiet and keep it on the down low so that not everyone knows about it. Because once people know about it, they tend to find a way to ruin it. And we're going to talk about all that and more. Anyway, so what actually happened was that apparently a long time ago someone made a documentary and saying one of the most beautiful villages in the UK. And once the word got out, and this was, by the way, in the 60s or 70s when a documentary came out apparently, and it talked about how beautiful it is, and people thought, ooh, you don't say. So people started to visit, but it was one of those things like you go out of London, Londoners would go to Brighton, or Londoners would go up north, or you go, I don't know, to Edinburgh just to change it a bit, or you go to Wales, you go to the mountains, Snowdonia and all that stuff, because that's what you do, because you want to get out of London. But of course, like most things, once you're out of London and you realize, wow, there is a life outside of London. All the UK is not based around London. And then you realize there are a lot of nice places you could also visit. And then, so during those years, like in the 80s and 90s, people would go and it was fine. And there was basically almost like going to the Lake District. You go there, you rent a cottage, and then you walk around, and it's just nice. And then people do that and then go back home. They do that and go back home, and that was fine. Basically, the pubs could make some money from Londoners earning some serious change, and then local people would get a bit of money, and they were happy. And as long as the Londoners don't stay for too long, you get the point. So we love you, but we love you from a distance. Come and spend your good hard-earned cash and then leave. Don't make too much noise. Don't bring your London ways here. And that is the way. It was almost like an unwritten rule. You come to the Cotswold, you enjoy it, and you leave. Don't make too much noise. And then things started to get a bit more interesting. And more people started to go. And then social media said, look, the most beautiful village in the world. All right, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but okay, in the UK, or okay, maybe even say in England. Does that help? Anyway, so the point is this, that when people started to use superlatives to describe the village and post basically sort of modified pictures of the villages, then people got more interested. So every now and then, people who can't afford to go abroad or can't even be bothered to go abroad would just go and spend a day there. You can go by coach and bunch of, basically it's just like a fun me. Okay, we all rent a coach together, and then we go and spend the afternoon there, walk around, and then say, oh, finally, this is something different. It's not London, and we like it. But after the end of the day, most people are like, yeah, I think it's too quiet here. I prefer the noise and and the craziness of London. It take me back. So you get all those things. But the funny thing was this. Once it was discovered, it was just a village, it's nice, a village. But then more people, more rich people started buying homes there, second homes or third homes. And then that is how Jeremy Clarkson got there. And that is apparently the Beckons also have homes there. Anyway, the point is this. when rich people, started buying second homes, it became a bit more sexy, and more people wanted to. I wouldn't say live there because that would be an exaggeration. More people wanted to move there, and you think there's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, like most things, once people started buying secondary homes, and the same thing actually happened in Cornwall, where a lot of more affluent people from other part of the country, like places like London, would go there, buy houses, and the houses were cheap, affordable at the time. But then it means that locals could no longer afford it. It drove the prices out. They were priced out of it. But the Cotswold were still really an interesting place. But a lot of the things that people like about it is also the reason why people don't like it. So once you start buying up these houses, it then means that most of these people don't permanently stay there. They're not contributing to the community life. So most of the houses could just be there empty for a good chunk of the year before the good weather comes around, and then people come and walk and say, "Oh, this is lovely," and then they all disappear. So this brings us to the many problems faced in the Cotswold, and that is basically young people are leaving. And those who actually grew up there said, "Well, this place is dead. It's boring." I know, because it's a village. And unlike the good old days of village life where you have, woodwork, and then farming, young people, apprenticeship, people actually have jobs in their village. The life goes on in the village. There was a lot of activity in the village. But now that's no longer the case. Most of the farms, the sheep, and all these are gone. So most of the people who are there now, they just probably work elsewhere, and or they have a little store, or they are retired. So most people, most young people, would not want to live there, because when you're young, you want you want to be alive. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but you get the point. You just want the busy life. You always wanting to go out. The older you get, you lead a more sedentary lifestyle, because you just can't be bothered. Anyway, so most people growing up in the Cotswold do not appreciate what they had, the quiet lifestyle, because you're young. So they move away. And by the time they decided they were going to come back, they couldn't afford to buy there. Not unless, you have relatives or your parents left you an inheritance. But anyway, you get the point. So most people only started to appreciate the Cotswold later in life, and you could understand that happens everywhere. Village life is not for young people. Anyway, so it brings us to the problem that more people now moving in, probably retired, and then you have tourism. So we're going to talk about some of the problems facing the Cotswold. I'm not saying they're bad, but they're just problems. And the biggest problem was when people were broke. And then something called staycation happened. And that was also partly due to the pandemic. So previous to that, people were like, "Oh, I can't afford to go to expensive destination like Disney World Paris or Disney Orlando, international travel. Even going to places like Spain with EasyJet was, not everyone could afford it. So people started going to, exploring what the country has to offer. And then once that happens, social media added a bit more fuel to the gain and started encouraging people to visit local installations. But unfortunately, the Cotswold is it's not your destination where you go just because. It's not even like visiting the Lake District. Basically, if you go to the Cotswold, you just see rows of houses, pretty village houses, well kept, gardens, maybe a tower here or there, and a pub, and that's it. But it was quiet, it was pretty, and the staycation meant more people started to go. And then more organized coach travels, and because of that, tourism became a problem. And because you couldn't basically fly, the pandemic and all the chaos that came with it. Anyway, it was all cool until it stopped being cool. And then the locals started to complaining that in some weekends they get about 20,000 people. And of course, when you get numbers like that and coaches coming in, it becomes a problem because you just basically a quiet village just gets overwhelmed with too many people. By the way, anytime people talk about this, not all the Cotswold villages get all this attention. Basically, you get the prettier cousins. Basically, you have the pretty ones. You have the more fancy houses, the ones with the water flow that people say is the Venice of the Cotswold. All that stuff. But then you have the other cousins that are just there and nobody really visits. Or people say, oh, it's nice here too, but you're not popular. And that's it. So when we're talking about these problems, you need to take that with a grain of salt, that not all the locations in the Cotswold, all the villages get the same attention. There are more villages, smaller ones and even bigger ones, but not all of them are very popular and have the problem with over tourism. So the over tourism that people complain about is not that. Basically, the area gets about 1.6 million visitors per year, it's said. But it's not like some weekends you get loads of people, and other weekends you get less people. But the complaint is this, that some visitors would show up and they would think, oh, this is not London. You don't have ULEZ or congestion charging. I could just park my car anywhere I want. So they sometimes park their cars anywhere they want and they don't care. And then, of course, the locals, you need to. And the funny thing is that most people don't appreciate that if you're local, you need the nature of the villages and the distances they have to cover just to do basic things like shopping. You need your car. And then you need to get out. If someone blocks you in, and on the narrow roads, or someone parks their car, it just blocks everyone in. It's not a good thing. So that is one of the complaints that people have, that the tourists come, they disregard village life and they just park anywhere they want. And another reason why they park anywhere they want is because you've got parking at the edge of the city or the village, but can't be bothered to pay the parking, and because they are cheap. If they had more money, they'll probably be in Ibiza somewhere or in Thailand and Bangkok. Anyway, they're a staycation. Anyway, so they went there. They don't want to pay parking, and they cause troubles, and that means locals are not happy with them. And another thing is this, that people complain about is when the coaches come, and in some cases they're saying the coaches, they do something, that they come and it's just like they dump a lot of people at the same time. If you have like 40, 50 people and you get 2-3 coaches, all of a sudden you're well over 100 or 200 people just just going around and just enjoying the village. So it just the crowd it creates can be a bit overwhelming for locals. And then it's almost similar to what, if they ban coaches, almost similar to what Amsterdam or bigger cities with ports are trying to do now. They don't want cruise ship coming over because they said the overcrowding is just a bit too much. And often most people, if they don't spend money locally in the local business, it's not very good just having people or so many crowds walking around and not benefiting the local community. But I would imagine that it's almost impossible to go without probably buying, I don't know, something in the local convenience stores, or going to a pub, or buying water, buying something. You need to spend, so from that point of view, some people don't mind because the activity is also good. Others have said, well, during high season I just leave. Cheerio, see you later. Don't I know when they all go away. All right, so that's one thing. The overcrowding is something that people complain about. Another complaint that people is that living in the Cotswold and visiting is a different thing. That it tends to rain a lot, and the rain also generates flooding. You wouldn't have guessed that they have a problem with that, but apparently the reason is that in the good old days when these villages were built, the sewage system and the water evacuation system wasn't really well thought through. And as people start to move in and the place grow, and then our people want to attribute this to global warming and all that. Anyway, imagine if that is the case. But too much rain basically means that it gets muddy sometimes, and you might need to put on your Wellingtons if you want to walk around. And so that is a problem. And it has been reported, like I think it was in 2024, that it rained so much that sewage was backing up into people's homes. So it is not always pleasant, put it that way. And that is one of those other things that, yeah, it's a pretty village, but it also has its own issues. Now, another thing people complain about is the inequality. You would think, because given the way people present the Cotswolds, it's like, oh, it's expensive. The average house is like almost 500,000 pounds. That's just too much. Only rich people could afford it. And then you see people like Jeremy Clarkson. Oh, he's rich, a former TV presenter, and Top Gear and all that stuff. So he's loaded. He doesn't mind spending that, all that money. But then there are people in council houses in the area as well. So not everyone is rich. So the consequence of that is that the more people coming in to buy expensive houses and running up the place and basically leaving those homes empty throughout the year, and then only occupying them maybe a week or two per year, it means all these other people who might actually be looking for homes or affordable homes would be unable to do so. So the inequality gaps, because of the popularity of the Cotswold, is something that people also worry about. And yeah, it's not something new. It's just the way things are, that sometimes it's just yeah, bad luck, put it that way. You broke. You don't come from family with money. Basically, you struggle all your life. Sometimes you make it, and sometimes you don't. And the other issue that people have also experienced is that there is a sort of a NIMBY feel to the Cotswold, where basically people are allergic to change. They said, oh, we want to make changes and we're going to make it better, and they're like, no, don't touch it, not in my backyard, because this place has been better since hundreds of years. It's not now you're going to make it better. It's been better, it's good, we like it this way. But these are the same people, of course, now, because of the flooding, they've been lobbying their MP, hey, you need to do something here. Our houses are in a state and we don't want it. It's not a good thing when sewage backs up into your house. You need to fix the sewage system and make sure rainwater is properly channeled away from my home. So, of course, they're not always allergic to changes, but the point is this, that when it benefits them, of course, but when it benefits others, they don't seem to care. But the funny thing is that in some cases, probably it might benefit the younger people, because in a village where you don't have young people, it's a village that eventually would die off. And that is just the reality of things. You could go to Italy. It's experienced a lot of problems with basically people moving out because there are no jobs, no opportunities in the area. Of course, you've got, I don't know, Bristol and Oxford and all these other places not too far away, but then you don't want to keep doing the drive. It's just too far. Anyway, the point here is that village life is not for everyone. And most people in the community in a village don't want strangers coming in and behaving badly. Basically, they want to keep the status quo, and I could understand that to a certain degree, because not all changes are good. And in some cases, they say, "Yeah, we're coming to help you," and by the time you know it, well, they're helping themselves, and you've been run out of the village. So I could understand the other counter argument of not wanting change. So another problem people complain about is this, that this is actually an interesting one about transportation. You would think that in a village, in a Cotswold, that you go there and a lot of the, you'll be able to just walk around, because it's a village, it's small, it's tiny. I want to go shopping, I walk around. I want to go, what else do people do? Get my hair cut, go to the doctors. None of that stuff. And this is another reason why people like London. The reason is this, that it doesn't mean they don't have bus system. It's just that the bus system, well, it's not reliable. You can't count on it. And people are saying even convenience stores or the local shop doesn't have all the things you need. So you need to go to the bigger next town closer to you, and that means you need a car. And then it means also you need to know how to drive. Oh, no, no, no. I'm not talking about, having your license. You could have your license in London and drive around, but then driving in the Cotswold, in the country, is a different ball game. Because when a car, I could remember, it was just above the Lake District, and you go through some narrow country road, and you're driving along. All of a sudden, you see a bunch of cattle, like cows, just staring at you, blocking the road, and they're just chewing, staring at you. And you're like, what do I do? And then you've read horror stories like some of the cars, when they have their little calves, they can really mess you up, and people are basically being trampled over, and you think, I'll stay in my car, put it in reverse, and just wait. You see? So, driving in the country is not as fun as most people would like. At night, it's so dark, and you like sharp turns, and then, I don't know, cyclists and all that. It is, well, you need to know how to drive. So transportation is a big problem, and then having to use your car for mostly everything, and that can be rather isolating, especially for older people, because the older you get, some people can no longer drive, or they can't even afford a car. So because of that, they constantly having to rely on other people. Uber or these other things might be available, or taxis, but they will be really expensive. So you can imagine the difficulties of actually living in a place that is supposed to be pretty idyllic, the best, but still has a lot of issues. So that is another problem people are facing. And even for young people, if you don't have a car, what do you do? Now, in the age of e-bikes, maybe, that would be affordable, and then you can at least go and visit your friends or go to work or things like that. But it's not always easy. So, yeah, it's not an easy thing living in the countryside, even though it is the most beautiful villages in the UK. And people have also said that when you go there, and you visit, not everyone actually appreciates it. People say it's pretty, but others have said, well, yeah, it's pretty. You only have buildings. Well, it isn't great. Just go to the Lake District. At least you have the mountains and you have the lakes and all these other things, instead of just walking around staring at buildings and just anyway, whatever floats your boat. But I think the villages are really nice. It's just people say it's different. It's just something that you don't expect. The villages are clean, and it's not the only village. If you go to up north, there are a lot of places like that, but these ones are just they're just nice, put it that way. Now, let's talk about the incidents that people actually complained about, tourists being evil and coming. And apparently, I don't know how true this is, but this was actually something that happened recently, in last year, where tourists basically came and took over the whole village and blocked everything. There was so much, the gridlock on the road, that it caused about it says 1.5 miles of traffic. And I'm like, in a village, you don't have that many people with cars. But then all the tourists came and blocked everything, and the tension was so great that some people, the locals told people to move, and people wouldn't move. And that was in Button on the Water, and says that they told people to move and they wouldn't move, and people basically insulted the locals and told them to F off. I don't know if they used that, but you get the point. People were not happy. Locals were not happy, telling the tourists what they can't do, and the tourists telling them, well, you don't own the streets. So you get the point. So it boils down to tension and people not being happy, and also people now saying, "Oh, I want to take a drone visit shot of the area." They started flying drones, and you might be in your bikini, in your garden. Well, bikini. I wouldn't go that far. It's not always that hot. It's not like a tropical country. But anyway, you get the point. Invasion of privacy, and I don't know how true it is, but some people also want to look at, if you with a walk around and try to look at the inside. You know what's it really like to live in a nice paradise like this, the Venice of the UK. So all those good stuff that that people who experience it, I think it doesn't really matter where you go. Humans can be just really terrible sometimes. And anyway, so if you after all that and all the chaos and all the nice things to be said about the villages in the Cotswold, if you want to go, they say basically, Bibury, home of the Arlington Row, is probably one of the most popular ones. The villages, people are saying, if you have to go, these are the places you need to go. So you have the Bourton on the Water, and then you have the Castle Combe, and then you have Stowe on the Wold, and then you have the Lower and the Upper Slaughter. What an unfortunate name. But anyway, there you go. So then you have the historic sites like the Sudley Castle, and then you have the Kelmscott Manor, and then you have Cotswold Way, which is basically, well, if you like hiking and trail, you can walk around there. And then you have the Cotswold Wildlife Park. It's not the Serengeti, but you know, it does the job. All right. And then you have you have the market, and then the Syrian Star, and then you have, well, the point is that all these little villages, they add something. It's got a different vibe. It's still a village, but some places are nicer than the others, and that's the most important thing. But all in all, I think it's worth visiting. It's worth, basically, especially if you like the more laid back sort of tourism. Not, you don't want to go and do the heavy duty stuff like the Lake District hiking in the mountains. You just want something outside of London, but not too remote. You see, just in between. Then the Cotswolds are good. You go there, walk around a bit. It's flat enough that you don't kill yourself with exhaustion, and then you have a good time. So I think looking at it is just a really pleasant place to go.